Are you thinking about making a move to the Portland area and you're wondering what are all those icky, sticky traffic areas on the west side of town that you want to avoid or consider before maybe making the move and buying something here? Well, in today's video, we're talking just about that. The 5 worst traffic spots on the west side of town. And if you stick around to the end, we're going to tell you about the worst spot. And we're getting after it right now.
If you are new to the channel and this is your first time checking us out, make sure that you tap that notification bell and click the subscribe button so that you are the first to know about everything happening in the greater Portland metro area.
I'm Ann Stewart. This is Erica Hagfirst. We are your go-to gals if you're making the move to the Portland area. All of our contact information is in the description below, so reach out to us. We love hearing from you, whether you're making a move in 9 days or 90 days. We are here for you. Let's connect and on to the video. We're going to sing you guys a little song about bad traffic, and it goes something like this. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Just kidding. Because our singing is about as bad as the traffic in Portland. Okay, so we're not gonna go there with you. You're lucky, but we are gonna talk about a pretty nasty area in Portland, and this is where maybe the worst of the worst happens. Right?
I think this is the worst area because it's almost always there. There's rarely a time of day, like during business hours, that there's not traffic in this area, and so. I think that, you know, it's just a given, like you're going to add probably minimally 5 minutes to your commute just for this 3-mile section.
What area is this we're talking about?
We are talking about the Highway 26 starting at the top of Sylvan.
Got it circled right here on the map.
Yep. And then it's a 3-mile downhill drive. So you would think that we shouldn't have traffic.
And that little pencil does not go as fast as you're going to go. I'm just trying to show you the direction you're heading in that she's talking about. Bottlenecking.
Yeah, a huge bottleneck because at the bottom of that 3-mile hill, you run into a split. So you either have to take 405 north, south, or you drop into the city. And that is a huge bottleneck for people because you have, I mean, traditionally, most people are going north or south on 405. And the middle lane stays the clearest. So what happens is you have people who drive down the middle and then they try to jam in right at the end. And it creates this huge bottleneck. I mean, there's not really a time of day, unless it's like maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, that there's not going to be some backup on that. It may not be the entire way, but like heavy traffic hours, commuting hours, it's always backed up. It usually starts at about the top of the hill or just past the crest of Sylvan. And that's going to be an area that you really want to, you know, if you're going to be commuting Highway 26, you're always going to be listening for what's the traffic doing at Sylvan.
Yep.
Also, a fun fact, during the winter, your weather will be worse at the top of Sylvan. So if it's rainy, nasty, and potential for snow, you will get it at the top of Sylvan before you get it anywhere else.
That's right. It's one of the highest peaks in the Portland area. And like she said, that freeway, you don't do a whole lot when the weather turns. And all those homes, keep in mind too, Highway 26, people are coming and going from Vancouver, Washington, because you can drop down into Portland, get on the I-5. People are coming in from the east side of town. People are trying to go out towards like Hillsboro or get on 217 going south. So it services a lot of areas. And like she was saying, it just gets gnarly congested all the time. I mean, it can be a Sunday afternoon and you'll be sometimes stuck on Highway 26.
And it's a huge, like for the people who are already out west, it's a pretty vast swath of areas that are using that highway as their main venue to get into town. So you think anything out from the coast is coming in generally that way. Banks, Forest Grove, Hillsboro, Beaverton, you know, most of them are coming in on Highway 26. So it's getting and then obviously Northwest Portland, like the backside of the West Hills, those are all having to use 26 to drop into town or to go north or south. So just high traffic. It has been, I mean, I've been living in the Portland area for 20 plus years, driven Highway 26. A lot of that is my main highway. And it's always had traffic. And they've widened it and widened it and widened it. It's like 4 or 5 lanes wide in certain areas, and it still has traffic problems.
So I would say if you're planning on making a commute and you're wanting to live on the west side and you have to take Highway 26 to go to the east side or downtown Portland, this is definitely an area you need to take seriously for your commute periods. And I would even say, like Erica always tells everyone, get on a map and put the commute time at the busy hour of the day when most people are commuting. And then even pay attention to weekends, because a lot of what we're going to talk about
it's crazy.
is how weekend traffic is almost as insane as regular weekday traffic. So
yeah. And something to keep in mind, if you're just somebody who wants to go into Portland a lot, if you're like, I'm going to live in the burbs, but I want to be able to go into Portland and have a really great dinner, 3 or 4 nights a week.
Yep.
You're not doing that. You're going to have traffic.
Or you'll think about it twice.
Yeah.
All right. The first worst area on the west side is the Wilsonville I-5-205 interchange. If you've been on this, it's not pretty. That's because you got 2 major freeways intersecting at that exact area. So on the map, you can kind of see a vague circle that we have here where it shows a pink line around that intersection. And it's really when you're coming on 205 West, and then it is meeting with the I-5 going south. Now, I-5 goes south and north all the way up through Seattle, south all the way down through Oregon. And so it's a big, big freeway. And so is 205. And huge. Now, if you live in the Portland area, what are the towns that you have to be aware of, or areas that you have to be aware of that this might affect you? And that would be Wilsonville.
Yeah.
Wilsonville is just south of the I-5. And if you're living in Wilsonville, that's like the freeway you hop on and off. There are back roads depending on where you need to go. But if you're getting on the freeway, which typically is the fastest route for most areas, especially if you're traveling to Portland or anywhere around Portland, you're going to run into this bottleneck all the time.
And it's kind of a funny thing, fun fact. So right at this interchange, the I-5 goes to 65 miles an hour. So it's 55 miles an hour as you're closer in. It hits 65 as you're hitting this interchange, roughly. Mm-hmm. So you would think that there shouldn't be any traffic. You would think that things are going to start clearing out, but that's not the case. Mm-mm. There's still a lot of exits, and the back roads, to be honest, are almost just as bad as the highway at these high traffic times. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't seem like it should be backing up. It's all straight highway. But when you add those 2 highways together, because 205 is servicing kind of the east side. So it's the east side coming, people who work over there, they're starting to come back home or whatever. But it really is a pretty nasty bottleneck. And it can kind of even start creeping up into Tualatin, into the Nyberg area when it gets really bad. But it is brutal. It comes to a crawl. You're going 5-10 miles an hour, and that's about it until you get past Wilsonville. It opens up, but you've got probably a 4-mile stretch of road through there that you're just going to be sitting.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to point some stuff out here, because if you are going to look at living in the Wilsonville area and you can commute out into the west side, I'm going to kind of just take this little pink thing right in this area to the west of this map. There are back roads. So like, for instance, oftentimes when I'm coming through Wilsonville to go to the back roads to get more into the west side, like Tualatin-Tigard, I can easily take back roads that is a lot quicker than sometimes going on the freeway, depending, of course, on the time of day. And you can get to like Highway 99, Tigard, Beaverton area a lot faster. Or if you're heading on I-5 going north and you're going to go towards the east side, maybe you're going to like West Linn, Lake Oswego. Again, there's back roads in this whole area right here called the Stafford area. We did do a video on Stafford. Check it out. It's kind of the farmland. It's actually a really pretty drive. So you can kind of pop around there. But if you're going to downtown Portland, you're going to Southwest Portland, you got to get to the east side. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to take any back roads. You're going to be on the freeway. So just know that if you plan on making a commute or living in kind of that Wilsonville area is where this really gets you for commuting. There's no way really around it.
No. Or if you have to head south of there, like anything, Salem, Woodburn, any of those places, you're going to be sitting in this traffic.
Okay. Number 2,
Tualatin-Sherwood. We're going to hop off the highway situation scene for a while. Tualatin-Sherwood is a connector road. So it takes you from kind of the I-5 area into Sherwood, into Tualatin, even into Beaverton. And
my line got a little janky. It's right here. We can kind of see
it.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
But this is a high traffic road.
Yeah.
And it seems like it should be this like great little connector road, but it is all the time just packed because it's a single lane each direction most of the way. There's periods where it's 2 lanes, but for most of the time it is 1 lane each direction. You've got a lot of like big trucks traveling it, obviously passenger vehicles, it just gets crowded. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of businesses through there. There's residential through there. But just know that, like, especially at the wrong time of day, you could be sitting in that traffic for a while. And there's not a lot of, like, you can get around parts of it, but you can't get around the entire thing.
Yeah.
Depending on where you're going. But, like, if your goal is to get into, like, downtown Sherwood or get into Beaverton that way, you're going to be sitting there for a while, and it's mind-numbing.
Yeah, it is. Like she was saying, there's a lot of businesses. There's a lot of industrial.
Yeah.
So there's like heavy semi trucks, big trucks, and then you've got all the commuters, you know? So if you're living in Sherwood, it's one of the only roads you can take to get to Tualatin. I mean, there are some back roads, but even then there's like a lot of heavy traffic going in and out of those back roads just because everyone's trying to avoid Tualatin-Sherwood. And it does get gnarly at certain parts of the day. There's just no reprieve from it. Some people take Highway 99 because that also shoots you towards like Tigard, and you can cut back through Durham Road to kind of get out towards the freeway system. But yeah, just be aware if you're going to live in the Sherwood area, probably this is something to be aware of as far as a commute. It can add probably an extra 10, 15 minutes on certain days.
I would say even maybe a little bit more. It's a tough road to have to be as part of your commute. And then, you know, as Ann mentioned, there's a ton of industrial, but then like right off that, like there's a lot of residential. And so it means that you're living right next to this, but super desirable area, you know, because it is so close in and all these other things. But just know, definitely factor in some time for traffic there.
Okay, number 3 worst traffic spot on the west side is the
Scholls-Sherwood Road.
Ooh, it's a doozy.
It is. So it kind of, the section that we're talking about really takes you from about Highway 217 to Roy Rogers / 175th.
Yeah.
And that section of road is packed. It's 2 lanes each direction with a turn lane. However, there's so many stoplights in this section of road, and it's so highly traveled because, you know, 217 is the main road in, or spoiler alert, Murray, one of our other option bad traffic areas. And so it's so heavily traveled to get out to the highways from deep Beaverton, Sherwood, you know, all these Tigard even. And so you just run into like very slow traffic, kind of that entire section. I mean, it could add 15, 20 minutes to your commute.
Yep.
And I've had it. I used to travel it all the time. Horse trailer, which was a nightmare because there's just so many, you know, there's so many roads that are connecting and pouring onto it. And then you have so many stoplights. And there's, again, a big combination of like residential and not necessarily industrial, but like retail type stores.
Yeah.
And then you have all the traffic that's going to the mall as well, which is right across the highway. And so just a really congested area, you know, especially that like last leg. If you live out in this area, you've already battled all the traffic on the highways and now you got to battle the traffic on the city streets. So just keep that in mind. If you start hitting those stoplights like wrong, I mean, you're just sitting there for a long time.
Yeah.
And it gets real miserable.
It's got, so Scholls goes far out, right? Like I'm kind of moving the map. You can see the green. That's kind of out where actually they're building a ton of new construction out in this area.
So much new construction.
A lot of new construction. You can see the population is just going to explode in this area. So you reach farmland on the other side of this, but the reality is you're pulling population from Tigard, Beaverton, Sherwood. A lot of people take the back roads. Like this is the intersection right in here where Roy Rogers meets Scholls Ferry Road, and everybody from Sherwood takes Roy Rogers out towards Scholls Ferry, where they can go out towards the tech land if you're going to Nike, if you're going out to Beaverton or the West Side, or heck, if you need to get all the way back to the freeway to 217, you're kind of at the mercy of Scholls Ferry.
Yeah.
There are some side and back roads, but again, you know,
not too many.
It's not good enough for it to be like the way to go. So you end up getting on Scholls Ferry, which is light after light after light. So if you're going to live in this area, like a lot of people right now are looking to buy new construction out in like the South Beaverton area or live out in Progress Ridge, or if you're on the backside of Bold Mountain and Tigard, or you're looking at Murray Hill, you're kind of like caught up in this area and this road. This road is going to become your main road in this area.
And something, I mean, part of the reason that there is so much bad traffic is because, you know, the intersection right there at Scholls and Roy Rogers, you've got a high school, brand new high school that's huge.
Yep.
And then surrounding that on all other corners of that intersection are large developments of new construction.
Yep.
So you think about the massive increase in people that are out there, aside from the people who are already using that road for travel, and that just adds to the congestion heading out towards 217.
Yeah, and I'm just sort of pushing on some of these like new construction areas because it is a vast area where a ton of people are buying and building thousands of homes. And you got to figure all those people have to be on those main roads.
Yeah.
And they're already, I think it's 2-lane, if I'm not mistaken.
It's just 2 lanes, yeah.
So now Roy Rogers, which is the road we kind of talked about a little bit here and there, but Roy Rogers is one of the main roads that you're going to take from Sherwood to this area right here. And that's all the people from Sherwood and Tigard, backside of Tigard, that use that road. And a lot of people make this commute to get out to all the Intel campuses. This is usually what they take to get to Nike if they get on Scholls going towards Murray Hill. This is servicing a lot of people and will continue to service a lot of people going forward.
Yeah, because Roy Rogers Roy Rogers between Scholls-Sherwood and then into Sherwood at Highway 99. Massive development going on there. So there's construction happening all along there with new homes. Mm-hmm. And then they're widening the road. I mean, it's like a 3-year project. So just know, if you're purchasing in the next 3 years, lots of construction through there.
Lots. And the next worst traffic area on the west side is
Murray. This is a nightmare of a road, and it literally takes you from Barrows in the Progress Ridge area all the way north past Highway 26. It's a very long, several miles of traffic through all sorts of terrain. You have a big hill as you leave the Progress Ridge area. And then you go down the other side and it flattens out and you go through Beaverton, part of Beaverton. You go through Nike area, which that's its own nightmare.
Let me kind of back up.
And then you head out towards Highway 26. So you've got athletic clubs and a couple of big major roads that you're crossing in Canyon and TV Highway and all of the things. So tons of traffic here, tons of traffic lights, lots of accidents. You know, it's such a long,
there's Nike
slog of a hill or of a road that if you have to go any sort of distance on it, and it does obviously connect up with 26. But not your ideal, especially at high commute times. The Nike area in general tends to get pretty gross on Murray and its surrounding streets. So keep that in mind as well. There's also a huge athletic club across the street from Nike. And then that leads closer to like Cedar Hills Boulevard, which is a high traffic area, but not like Murray, just because of its length. Such a long road.
And it's one of those where it has light after light and everybody's trying to get out of the area onto Murray Hill and go either north Highway 26 or get down into the suburbs. And it's honestly faster usually to take the freeway, even though you might be somewhere close. Let's say you're at the tippy top of Scholls and Murray, and you might think, oh, I'm just going to go down Murray and get down to Highway 26 or get down to this area. You might be surprised on a lot of days how freaking long this takes. In fact, we have a lot of people who move to the west side and they are working somewhere in the Beaverton area and they're like, oh, I'm just going to jump on Murray Hill because it's not that far on a map. And it's a bad idea in a lot of ways because it is painful on a lot of days. And oftentimes I want to avoid it at all costs. So I try to either take the back roads or I head out towards Scholls and get on the freeway and get down the freeway a little bit, take an exit. It's just so much faster. Now there are times of the week that are better, but it's hard to know. Usually during commuter hours, forget it. On the weekends, it can be a little bit better, but I've seen it all honestly be pretty bad on the weekends too, because it's just feeding into all these neighborhoods. And Beaverton is one of our biggest cities on the west side. And so we always caution people like some of these bigger roads are not necessarily the best options for your commute. There are better options depending on where you're going to be working from or how your lifestyle is going to be. And that's where you should really reach out to us because you might say, hey, I work out in the tech area, or I want to work out in Hillsborough, but buy in Beaverton, or I want to do X, Y, or Z. And we can help guide you on like, okay, what is your commute tolerance? Because
and the big thing with commuting is you really have to do it at the times that you're going to be commuting because, so often I know I do this where I'm like checking my trips and it's, 12 o'clock at night and the roads are great. And so I'm like, it's going to take me 15 minutes. That's fantastic. And then you get to traffic time and you're like, this is going to take me 45 minutes. That sucks. I did not allocate that. So make sure that you're testing those commutes on, whatever, Google Maps or whatever your app of choice is at the times that you would be commuting because it makes a huge difference. And that's something that we run into obviously all the time because we're driving at all hours of the day. Obviously, Ann's grew up here. I've lived here for way too long. And so we know these traffic patterns. If you're like, I'm going to live on the east side and I'm going to work at Nike, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Even living in certain areas of like Newburgh or, Sherwood, some of these have become longer commutes. We've added a lot of new construction homes, and so those people are now on the roads in these communities and they're adding up. I mean,
and there's not a lot of good public transportation.
No, I mean, our public transportation is a little bit of an issue here. So we obviously have the Max line, which is slow. We have buses, which, depending on how far you need to go, could be an option. But just keep in mind that if you're planning to commute by car, that what roads you have to drive on are going to be really important. And even so many of the back roads have become not so secret anymore. So a lot of people used to skip Highway 26 and getting into town by taking Germantown. Mm-hmm. Germantown is a nightmare now because once you drop down on the other side, it's a single lane each direction, twisty turny, and there's no way to turn around. You've got like hill on one side and homes on the other, which is odd because they're on a hill too. So just, we can walk you through some of those options, but know that traffic is our little secret here because it's getting worse. With all the new construction that we're adding within the urban growth boundary, it is making our roads real tight.
Okay, and since you stuck around to the end, we're going to give you a little bonus area of traffic, and that area is
Highway 217, all 7.52 miles of it. That's your fun fact for this episode. So this is an interesting highway. It connects Highway 26 and I-5, and it is a nightmare. They are currently in the process of widening it to 3 lanes each direction, and
which makes it extra nightmarish at the moment.
Extra. However, it's not going to alleviate the problem. This is a huge issue. They haven't looked far enough ahead to realize the load that this highway needs to be able to, transport. And so it's going to be a nightmare when it's done, and it's a nightmare now.
It's probably worse right now because everything slows down around construction.
Oh, yeah.
And it really is one of those where you have to add time to your existing commute that you know of. And it's already at a slow crawl depending on the time of day. Like I would say during the afternoon, almost at any time, you're looking at a slow crawl. And especially when everyone's leaving work or, they have off hours, between 3 and 5 and 6, it's brutal. So oftentimes if I'm making a commute or meeting with clients or whatever, and I have to take 217, I always allocate a lot of extra time, especially right now. We don't know when they're going to be done with construction. It always seems like there's some construction happening at any given time in the Portland metro area. So right at the time they get done with what they need to do, they're doing something else next because they got to do more. So 217 is really our freeway, our major freeway on the west side of town. It's hard to avoid it. This is where having the instinct from the two of us, if you're planning on making a move, especially to the west side, to say, okay, what's your tolerance for commuting? Where do you want to live? What's your lifestyle like? And try to avoid being on a freeway maybe as much as possible. And you can do it. I mean, that is the nice thing about Portland, especially, in these areas we're bringing up, is it's not the end of the world if you have to use these from time to time. But if it's your main source of getting to and fro on a daily basis, you might end up in a little bit more of a miserable life. And that's what we try to avoid is making sure people know, what are they going to be signing up for if they have to use this all the time. So again, that is the nice thing. There are a lot of I don't want to say back roads because we can't really say that anymore because the back roads have been discovered as the main roads. But there are other creative ways that people get around other than having to always get on a freeway. But you have to know about where you're going and where you're getting to in order to do that. So,
and some of this is your traditional 9 to 5 schedule-ish. Yeah. However, I will say that some of our traffic starts around the 2:30-ish time frame as well. We have a lot of alternative work schedules in the Portland metro area with some of the bigger companies. And so I would say that, starting usually in school, getting out and stuff like that, but generally starting around 2:30, 3 o'clock is when you start seeing traffic start to ramp up. Definitely on the Highway 217s, which is literally, it starts at about exit 1, which is, just as it comes off of Highway 26. And then, unfortunately, like I said, it goes all the way to, it actually can take you into Hillsborough. It becomes Cruise Way, basically. And that's where it dies and Cruise starts. And so you have to know that then, the exit is I-5 to go south or north. And so it really is just such an interesting road. And you've got a lot of on-ramps and off-ramps.
You got the major Mall, Washington
Yes,
Square off
you got
of it.
Washington Square. I mean, there's just, and the areas in between, there's a lot of business off of that, like Scholls-Sherwood is off of that. Not Scholls-Sherwood, Scholls Ferry. And so, some of these other high traffic streets are all connecting and converging at 217. So it's always been a nightmare. I mean, I've been, like I said, here 20 plus years, and it's always been a point of contention. And then obviously with the construction that is undergoing right now, bigger issues, because a lot of times it'll get cut down to maybe one lane in certain areas or restricted access. They actually have closures sometimes overnight, but it is definitely a nightmare if you're traveling at like 5 or 6 p.m.
And just so you're aware too, like some of the major, like getting off the freeway exits are Walker Road. You've got the Canyon
TV
Highway. You've got Allen Boulevard.
Yep.
You've got Denny Road. Then you have the Progress Hall Boulevard, and then Scholls Ferry, and that's right next to the mall, which is a big one. And then it just kind of goes from there to like Greenberg Road, and then it kind of spits you out into the Lake Oswego area is kind of where it is. So it's a big freeway system. There's a lot of people using it on the daily. So just something to be aware of. It's not your most friendliest freeway. You have to use it on the west side at some point, but hit us up if you are curious about like where you're looking on the west side, and do you have to use this on the regular? Because that's a pretty important piece of information.